For years, this pool was my sanctuary, a private haven built with my own hands, a place where the world's noise faded, and only the gentle lapping of water remained. It was a space I cherished, a quiet reward for a life of hard work. But true peace, I've learned, is a fleeting luxury when entitlement lurks just beyond your fence line. The first splash was just the beginning, a subtle crack in the facade of my solitude, a harbinger of the storm that was to come. My property, my rules, a simple concept, one I believed was universally understood. My home, nestled away in a quiet corner, was my refuge from the ceaseless demands of the world. And this pool, it was the heart of that refuge. But in the ecosystem of suburban living, there exists a species of individual who views private property not as a boundary, but as an opportunity. The homeowners association was meant to maintain order, to protect property values, to ensure a certain standard of living. For some, however, it became a banner under which to march into others' lives, to dictate, to demand. And at the head of that march, in our little corner of the world, was Karen. She wasn't just a busybody, she was an architect of intrusion. And her vision, unfortunately, included my private oasis. It started subtly, a misplaced beach ball on my lawn, a faint echo of laughter from over the fence where no one should have been there. Soon, these accidents became brazen acts of trespass. The line between my and theirs blurred in their minds, twisted by a perverse sense of communal ownership. My pool, which had once been a source of quiet joy, slowly transformed into a source of constant vigilance, a battleground in a war one never asked to fight. The early signs were easy to dismiss as isolated incidents. A misplaced beach ball in the shrubs, a stray flip-flop on the patio. But soon, the evidence grew bolder, more undeniable. Footprints appeared on the cool concrete around my pool, disturbing the pristine surface. My carefully latched gate, designed for privacy, was consistently found ajar, sometimes even broken. It wasn't just Karen, it was her kids, her friends, her entire entourage, treating my private property an extension of the HOA's non-existent community pool. My polite requests for them to respect my boundaries were met with feigned ignorance, then outright dismissiveness. "Oh, we thought it was a common area," Karen would say, her eyes betraying a knowing smirk. "Your pool thus looks so inviting." The sheer audacity was breathtaking. I installed stronger locks, taller fences. Each morning, I'd check, hopeful that my efforts had finally sent a clear message. Each morning, my hope was dashed. Broken latches, bent hinges, even signs of forced entry. It became a daily ritual of violation, a constant reminder that my sanctuary was under siege. My pool, once a source of relaxation, became a burden. The thought of finding strangers splashing in my water, leaving their trash, or worse, leaving behind a mess I'd have to clean, filled me with a quiet dread. The simple joy of my own backyard was systematically being stripped away. I exhausted every reasonable avenue. I contacted the HOA management, detailing the constant trespassing. Their response was a textbook example of corporate indifference. "We encourage neighborly relations." I called the local authorities. Without direct proof, without witnessing the act myself, their hands were tied. "It's a civil matter," they'd say, advising me to put up no trespassing signs. Signs that were torn down within hours of being erected. I was drowning in bureaucracy, caught in a cycle of polite refusals and shrugged shoulders, while my privacy continued to be violated. Each dead end intensified a growing, simmering resentment. I felt isolated, unheard, and increasingly vulnerable. It became clear that no one was going to help me. The system designed to protect property rights was failing me, and my tormentors knew it. They were emboldened by the lack of consequences, their confidence swelling with each unchallenged intrusion. This wasn't just about a pool anymore. It was about the principle, about the right to peace and privacy in my own home. My anger, once hot and explosive, began to cool into something far more dangerous, a quiet, unyielding resolve. I realized that if I wanted this nightmare to end, I couldn't rely on rules or authorities. I had to take matters into my own hands. I had to set a trap they'd never see coming. Frustration, when left unchecked, can drive a man to madness. But channeled, it can fuel ingenuity. If the system wouldn't protect my property, I would. If they refused to acknowledge my boundaries, I would make those boundaries impossible to ignore. My plan began not with anger, but with precision. I started with surveillance, small, high-definition cameras, strategically placed and virtually invisible, covering every angle of entry and every inch of my pool area. These weren't for deterrence. These were for undeniable, irrefutable proof, for accountability. But proof alone wasn't enough to stop them. It merely documented the crime. I needed a deterrent that was immediate, effective, and profoundly inconvenient. Something that would turn their illicit swim into an unforgettable nightmare. My solution: a sophisticated, motion-activated sprinkler system. Not just any system. Mind you, this was industrial grade, tied into a high-pressure pump, designed to activate instantly and drench anyone who dared to set foot within the pool perimeter after hours. The water wouldn't just be cold, it would be a sudden, overwhelming deluge, a shock to the senses, designed to send even the most entitled trespasser scrambling. I then reinforced my pool gate, not with a simple lock, but with a custom-built mechanism that was more akin to a bank vault than a backyard entry point. I waited. Patience was the ultimate weapon, and as expected, one humid summer night, the cameras flickered to life. There she was, Karen, leading her usual procession of entitled neighbors, sneaking through my reinforced gate as if it were a public park entrance. They were laughing, confident in their impunity. They thought they were clever, bypassing my locks, sidestepping my no trespassing signs. But they hadn't bypassed me. The moment Karen's foot landed on my pool deck, the trap sprung. The silence of the night exploded with the hiss and roar of high-pressure water. 1,000 icy needles, unleashed from hidden nozzles, converged on them, drenching them to the bone. Their laughter turned to gasps, then to shrieks of pure, unadulterated shock. They slipped, they scrambled, their towels and pool bags scattering across the suddenly slick concrete. It was chaos. Beautiful, glorious chaos. Every single moment, every terrified yelp, every indignant splutter, captured in crystal-clear high definition. They retreated in disarray, a soaking, indignant mess. Their impromptu pool party was over before it began. From my window, I watched them scatter, their entitlement washed away by a torrent of cold reality. The next morning, I delivered the evidence, not to the HOA, not to the police directly, but to the entire neighborhood. A carefully edited compilation of their midnight escapades, complete with timestamps and Karen's signature indignant shouts, anonymously uploaded to the neighborhood's public forum. The consequences were immediate and severe. The HOA, now facing undeniable proof and public embarrassment, had no choice but to act. Fines were issued, formal warnings were delivered, and Karen's reign of pool-crashing terror came to a very public, very humiliating end. The neighbors, seeing themselves exposed and ridiculed, quickly distanced themselves from her. The pool was mine again, and this time, the lesson was clear. Some boundaries are not meant to be crossed. They believed my pool was theirs for the taking, ignoring every warning, every lock. But they found out the hard way that a man's privacy, once pushed to its limits, will find a way to defend itself. Their midnight swim became their public humiliation. The ensuing silence was deafening. After the fines, the formal warnings, and the undeniable public shaming, the nightly intrusion ceased. Karen, once the self-appointed queen of unsolicited advice and boundary pushing, retreated into a shell of suburban shame. Her once loyal followers, now exposed to the cold light of consequence, quickly found other pastures to graze. My private oasis was finally, truly, private again. The pool, once a source of constant stress and irritation, reverted to its original purpose, a place of calm, of relaxation, of personal enjoyment. I could once again step into my backyard without a knot in my stomach, without the need for constant vigilance. The sound of a splash now brought only joy, not dread. It's a strange thing, what lengths one must go to simply maintain the fundamental right to peace within one's own home. This wasn't about being unneighborly. This was about respect, about boundaries, about the fundamental understanding that private property means just that. It means you don't take what isn't yours. It means you don't impose your will on others. It means there are lines you simply do not cross. The HOA, once so toothless in the face of direct violations, now operates with a newfound respect for my property. Funny how a little public embarrassment and irrefutable video evidence can sharpen their focus. Some lessons, it seems, can only be taught through experience, and sometimes that experience needs to be delivered with a high-pressure jet of cold, hard truth. My pool is once again my sanctuary, not theirs, and the price they paid for their entitlement, well, that was a lesson worth every single drop.